And after all, do we really want cheap China stuff to go away? This thing was like 20 bucks. It's actually like kind of cool. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Tesla stock up over 4% today. What a good day for Tesla to come into the last day of this week, which is tomorrow. In this video, I will share with you kind of how I'm viewing Tesla right now, what I'm expecting to come. And let me tell you, if you're a bear, if you're a bull, you probably need to hear this. You probably need some perspective in your life, okay? Because this market is very volatile in really even emotions, not just the trading action of this market, but everyone's emotional right now. You either think the US economy is coming to a halt, or you think this is about to be the best economy we've ever seen in our entire lives, okay? So I will provide my perspective on that. Now, I did find a very interesting clip of Senator Ted Cruz from Texas, okay? Very well liked, respected individual, broadly speaking, in the Republican Party. He says that there is one outcome with tariffs that is very bad and one outcome that's very good. It seems like Ted Cruz actually knows what he's talking about, okay? He says he's advising Trump to take the right approach, whereas some people in his cabinet think that tariffs should just stay in effect, okay? It looks like Trump is, I would say, listening to reason here. We're walking further away from the cliff of disaster, it feels like. I mean, Donald Trump today said, go buy stocks. Isn't that just wild, okay? It says go buy stocks because we're probably going to give you really good news tomorrow. I think that could be an announcement of the trade deal, if not tomorrow, by Monday. So let's elaborate a little bit further on all of this. But first, before we do, listen to this clip from Ted Cruz. It is pretty short. It just, I mean, it's I would say relieving to know that, you know, some in the Republican Party, like deep in the Republican Party, understand that just keeping these tariffs on is a losing strategy. It is disastrous, as Ted Cruz says.
Let me start on the tariff piece and then go to the Medicaid piece. On the tariff piece, I think we're at a fundamental fork in the road, and there's one path that is very, very good and one path that is very, very bad. The path that is good is President Trump has greater leverage right now than any president in our lifetime to negotiate lower tariffs with our trading partners. We're expecting an announcement about the UK later this morning. And what I have been urging President Trump, use that leverage, negotiate dramatically lower tariffs with our trading partners, use the fact that you've threatened these tariffs to lower them in exchange. And if we end up 30, 60, 90 days from now with significantly lower tariffs worldwide, that will be an historic win, an economic win for jobs and American business and productivity that we've never seen before. That's the path I want President Trump to take. There is another path, and there's a camp within his administration that doesn't see tariffs as a means to an end, doesn't see them as leverage, but rather sees them as the end, is happy with high tariffs as a permanent feature of economic system. I think path number two would be an utter disaster. So I am regularly and daily urging the president, use the leverage to get this win. Now let's shift to Medicaid. You asked about...
From Ted Cruz's perspective, okay, if Trump were to listen to that theoretically, then, 30, 60, 90 days from now, the trade war is going to be over with. And we could start to look forward to more of the positives. Now, what a lot of people are talking about as well, or not really talking about right now, that we will be talking about, is some of the markets that could open up for the U.S., specifically China, okay? There's a lot that we can negotiate with China from that perspective to allow more American goods into the country, okay? To tap into that market would be massive. I mean, China is really a supplier for the U.S. at this point. What if the U.S. could become a bigger supplier for China? as Scott Besson has said, China's consumers need to start consuming more, okay? Become more like American consumers. That would actually be a very positive outcome to this trade war. And I do think that is one way to negotiate with China that could really give us a big win, like with the UK today. The UK is opening up their market to $5 billion worth of imports. What if China opened their markets up to $100 billion of imports? You're not going to see a 145% tariff on China. You might see a 10% tariff on China. I think there's a lot of negotiation room there for China to open their market in exchange for lower tariffs, okay? It might be 10%, might be 20%. It doesn't really matter from that perspective. We're at 145%. There's basically a trade embargo that is unsustainable for both countries. For China, it's really bad. For the US, it's really bad, okay? It's unsustainable. It's not going to last. Even Trump said today that China tariffs are going to fall. And Trump said as well today, he thinks there will be substance coming out of the talks over this weekend. And I do believe there's already plans for a pause on China tariffs. Probably by tomorrow, if not by Monday. After the trade talks, I'm sure we get a pause on China tariffs. And I think that's why Donald Trump said to buy stocks today. That's the secret to all of this, that most people, I don't think, are picking up on today. But I think some hedge funds and institutions are. I think that's why the S&P did so well today. It's not because we had a trade deal with the UK or Trump said to buy stocks. I think it's because Wall Street is starting to feel a little bit more comfortable with where we are, you know, walking back from the cliff, if you will, the economic disaster cliff, and getting a little bit more allocated to stocks today. Okay, because hedge funds and institutions, we have to face it, have been dramatically underweight stocks this year. Okay, they've been net sellers of stocks. They haven't really been positioning in markets because of the severe economic risks of a prolonged trade war. As it looks like we start to get some deals that are done, and China is really the only one that matters at this point. Let's be honest. China is the trade war. Once we get a deal with China, it is over, okay? Markets are not even going to care about other countries, right? Who cares if we get a trade deal with, you know, India or not? We got one with China. Who gives a crap, okay? That's kind of the narrative that will start to form. And I do think the outperformance today is really representative of Wall Street, maybe even knows something that we do not. Large money, that is, systemically important large money like Citadel and Virtue and really market makers. They probably already know when the big headline is coming on a pause on China tariffs. Hell, it could be tonight, could be tomorrow, could be over this weekend or on Monday. I think someone is positioning for that, though. And I think that explains why Tesla also did so well today. The companies that do a lot of business in China already are going to be some of the biggest winners, because look, if China's gonna open their market and you're already in China, that's great. Okay, you already have a foothold in that country. But also from the perspective of China's communists, they could kick out US companies if this were to divulge into a larger trade war. That risk all of a sudden is gone. A lot of the recession risk will fade away. Okay, the inflation risk will fade away. Thus, we really don't have inflation right now. The Fed can start to cut rates sooner. Okay, all of which is positive. There's no negatives getting a trade deal with China. We can actually start to look ahead to the tax bill and some deregulation and some of the positive Trump, plans. So my expectation for markets, when the China deal gets announced, we're gonna see maybe 5% upside on markets. This could actually be enough to send the markets to new all-time highs. Believe that or not, because of the new positioning that will need to take place in markets, right? Hedge funds and institutions will rush into markets. They will cover on short positions, and some of the high beta stocks, again, some of the tariffed companies, some of the companies that are already in China that have a lot of that, risk in China of a Chinese consumer pullback, will do the best. And I think that sets Tesla stock up very well for the second half of this year. Guys, it's already May 8th. You're almost in the second half of this year. You have a robotaxi coming up, the launch of cheaper products. It seems like the worst is probably behind us at this point. Now, Tesla hit that low at 215. It's currently at 287 or so. You got to get above that 293 level. Once you do, you're going back into the mid 300s in my view. 350 could be in the cards. But if things go well, from my perspective, with China getting a trade deal, and we start to focus on more of the positives, economy holds up, Fed can start to cut rates, you could easily see Tesla $500, $600, $700 by the end of this year. You could see an aggressive rally in Tesla stock. You could see 100+% rally from now into the end of the year if things go well. I think you could actually start to see a fair bit of optimism come back into markets. And the assumption, the view that we had in January and February, that Trump's actually going to be a good, positive force for this economy. And let's say we do get a bunch of trade deals that open up markets globally to American products at large. Imagine the optimism that could come in from that. Now, there's a chance that, we get bad news from the China, talks. I don't think that's going to happen. That doesn't seem logical to me, but it is a possibility we have to be open to. And after all, do we really want cheap China stuff to go away? This thing was like $20. It's actually like kind of cool. Yeah, I mean, it's safe to say I'm pretty bullish at this point. Again, some of my bullishness does come from the fact that Wall Street is so negative. They have a really hard time psychoanalyzing Trump, and I think at this point, while that's usually not a good strategy to try to psychoanalyze Trump, I think it's pretty clear that Trump doesn't want a recession. He doesn't want a depression. He doesn't want hyperinflation. I think that's becoming clearer and clearer, and he actually wants to make a deal with China, and it looks pretty obvious to me at this point. He wants to open up the world to American companies, to American products. He doesn't necessarily want to be a bigger manufacturer than China. He just wants to, get American goods in other countries, right? He wants to be a competing force. And I think the root of it is national security, if you want me to be honest. I think he wants enough manufacturing where if we went into a war, we would be okay with our own semiconductors. We could build all those. We could manufacture our own medicines. We could manufacture all our own steel and ships and all of that in the event we did go to war, right? Because that's kind of the one thing that would screw us. We couldn't manufacture enough quite in this country to compete in a large scale like conflict. So, these are just my kind of speculations. I do think that sets, I think it could set up the economy to actually do pretty well. And I think Tesla, high beta stock, company that does a lot of business in China, could do very well. And the kids really love these things, but it's electric, so doesn't work without the battery, buddy. Yeah, he likes China water guns too. Seriously, this was like $20. It's an electric fire water gun. It's a blast. Comes with a silencer. One of the kids lost it, but it like lights up. So every time water goes out or you shoot it, it like lights up the water a little bit. Pretty cool. $20. Honestly, got it on the TikTok shop, which I don't trust the TikTok shop all too much. So be careful out there. Not a recommendation, but definitely fun. So I think I said my part. Stop it, buddy. I think you guys understand where I'm coming from. At least the majority of you guys probably have the same view as I do. So I'm pretty optimistic in the second half of this year. Let me know if you are. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.